Welcome to another installment of Studio Sessions with the Madam.
Today we're talking with a woman who understands the power of music.
In addition to working with legends like Hans Zimmer and Martin Phipps, she's earned awards and acclaim for her work on a number of British television shows.
And on top of crafting brilliant compositions, our guest dazzled audiences the world over as a member of an incredible string quartet.
We're thrilled to be joined by the fiercely talented woman behind the score of Loki, Natalie Holt. Thanks so much for coming on.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
So, Natalie, who inspired you or what inspired you to be a composer and a performer?
Well, I guess my mum was a music teacher and a cellist as well. So that music was definitely being pushed, well, not pushed, but in the ether from very early on. And my grandmother was a violinist as well, actually. So I chose to learn the violin, and I'm still playing her violin.
Oh, that's
now,
lovely.
Even though she's no longer with us, but yeah. So it's, kind of in the family, I would say.
Yeah, it's a nice way to keep that history in the family, especially when you're using the same instrument.
Yeah, no, it's really special. I discovered a pile of her music, her violin music recently that was in my mum's attic, and it had all of her fingering and like musical markings on lots of Bach partitas. So it felt like, reading a letter or something, seeing her marked up scores.
Oh, wow. What a time capsule. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, as we mentioned in the intro, you've worked with legendary composers, including Zimmer and Phipps. What are some of the greatest lessons that you've learned through those collaborations?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I guess I didn't, Hans didn't employ me himself. I was Martin's assistant, and they co-wrote a film together. So I kind of was working more with Martin, but I was in some meetings with Hans, and that was really a lesson to me, just seeing him handling like a room full of execs and just putting everybody at ease. And he has this incredible way of communicating, and he'll come up with a concept behind, like, it's not just music, it's telling its own story, and he just excites people, and they're like totally in the palm of his hands. And yeah, seeing him kind of holding the room like that, and also just he's not kind of going over people's heads with musical terms. He's just always about storytelling, and just being a good communicator. I think that's also part of your job as a composer, as a film and TV composer.
Yeah, I think that's key when it comes to conveying emotions. A lot of it gets done through the score of any of the shows and movies that we watch.
Definitely, yeah, and Martin as well. He's just, he's such a thoughtful and really generous person, and I love working with him. And he loves to collaborate and be inspired by the musicians that he works with, and he'll just be quite spare with his themes and textures, but then he'll put something really beautifully detailed together. But it's really fascinating seeing different composers and their processes, and I just feel like I'm always learning from collaborating. Like, I think if I was just stuck in a room on my own, I'd get really bored of myself. So I love collaborating with filmmakers and musicians and other composers. It's part of the fun of the job, I think.
Right. So of all the compositions that you've done for films and TV, which one would be your favorite that you worked on? What would be the one that you're most proud of?
Oh, it's like asking who your favorite child is. I mean, I only have one child, so that's kind of a easy one. But, they're also all the projects feel so different, and on the whole, like, incredibly positive. I feel really lucky to have collaborated and worked with such great people like Philippa Lowthorpe and Three Girls. That was such a powerful storytelling process, because it was a real life story of these girls that were sexually abused in Rochdale, in a trafficking ring. Mm-hmm. And Philippa and Nicole Taylor were working with these victims of this abuse, and to have that, the dub, the final mix, we had one of the girls there, and just being part of that kind of cathartic experience for these people was incredible. And the music for that show was very spare but very emotional, but I just felt like that story, it didn't need like a big grand theme like Loki needed. So I feel like being appropriate for the story that you're telling is always really key as well. And then I just finished a film that's coming out in the autumn with Claudia Lalosa called Fever Dream, which was a great project to work on as well, and just a great team of people. And I don't know, I love everything. Obviously Loki's just been an amazing experience as well, and working with Kate Herron was just a dream. She was a dream collaborator, really, and we just really hit it off with our kind of sensibilities and taste, and the direction that she and I wanted to take the music just seemed to gel.
That's wonderful.
And so the first half of the soundtrack dropped today, and it's just gorgeous. We think that you are the absolute perfect person to score this show for a number of reasons, but your collaborative spirit is one of them, because it seems like this particular show, more than most others, has been such an incredible collaborative effort. So tell us about that process for creating the score. Where did you begin?
I guess that it began with the very first meeting, because I read the script and responded to what was there, what was happening to Loki, and then I guess the things that I was communicating with, the kind of ideas I had, resonated with Kate Herron and Kevin Wright, who's the producer who was on those first meetings. And then I got through to the next stage where I did a pitch, which I'm sure they probably had loads of composers doing. And it was a scene from episode 1 from the Time Theatre where Loki's looking back at his life.
Right.
So that was, I think it was like a 9-minute sequence that I had to score. That was where I just came up with that Loki theme right there in the pitch. I just sat down at the piano and I came up with that theme. So that was there from the get-go, actually. Weirdly, it just kind of popped into my head. I was like, it needs to be this grand theatrical kind of over-the-top theme with these flourishes, and then using the theremin was also in my pitch as well. And Kate just obviously decided that was the way she wanted to go. So then the process just was quite kind of, I don't know, it was just, everything just kind of connected up and flowed really well. And I feel really like I've managed to create something that I feel proud of, and I think Kate does too, and something that I feel really captured Loki's spirit and kind of told his story musically. So yeah.
It certainly has. And I have to tell you, both our mouths are just wide open right now. The idea that that's the scene they gave you to score, it's one of, if not the most emotional scene of the series thus far.
Yeah, it was edited quite differently, actually, when I, like last summer. It started when they came up the lift. That was where the scene started.
Okay.
So
all right.
there were a few. It was kind of a bit lighter at the front. There was a bit of that Loki Mobius
Yes.
chat at the beginning that was more playful.
Right.
Yeah.
So there are so many influences in the show, and we can feel within the score. What were your particular inspirations?
Definitely that, that Tom Hiddleston's performance, and there's something so kind of Shakespearean about his delivery and the high notes and the low notes that Loki goes to. I felt like it needed to be something grand and orchestral, but I wanted the quirkiness of the TVA to and that kind of everything in there, like when I saw the design, there's something quite sort of analogy, and there's lots of levers, and like you see an Akai in Renslayer's office.
Right.
So I felt like that kind of texture of the TVA, that kind of slightly, like the analog tape machine, and making everything kind of have that aesthetic that kind of matched what I was seeing visually. That seemed to work. And then obviously the theremin that Kate and I connected on in that very first meeting. And then as I got deeper into that sort of emotional side of Loki and his past and his mother and this meeting, this female version of himself, I wanted to call back to the Norse mythology. There we go. There's a tongue twister. Or it is for me. And so, then I just remembered these Norwegian musicians that I'd heard playing in London at a concert a few years earlier. And because of the pandemic, they weren't on a tour. So they were really up for playing. And I just, you come up with a line on the piano, or I play it on my violin, and I'm classically trained, so I can't put that folky heart into it.
Right.
And
Right.
and then you hear these inflections that Eric and Olaf put on their phrasing, and it just felt like it was the perfect combination, I think, for that kind of nostalgic calling back to Loki's origins.
Yeah, and that spacey feeling is amazing too, especially thinking back to those old sci-fi movies from like the 50s and 60s when Loki and Sylvie went to meet the Timekeepers in that schlocky set. Between the score and the set, it had me thinking about Ed Wood.
I guess, you could. There's something kind of quite campy about that. I mean, there was meant to be, because they turn out to be automatons.
Exactly.
Yes.
Thinking back to, Plan 9 and all that kind of schlocky design and paper mache that didn't quite work. It was perfect.
Yeah. And because you kind of think, oh, these look a bit weird. And then you realize... I love that the scripts just keep turning everything on their head the whole time. It's so, such clever writing and clever directing from Kate as well. She really took that and ran with it as well.
Yeah, it's been incredible so far. Did you want to go back to the previous Thor movies or the Avenger movies to get some sort of a feel for Loki's soundtrack, or did you want to just go with a fresh slate?
Well, I think that was very much what I was told from the get-go, was like, everybody really wants to push this and for it to be really different from the movies, and you don't need to think backwards, just think forwards. So everyone was really supportive of whichever direction I wanted to go in, which is, it's like looking at a blank canvas sometimes. Being like, but I think that was quite freeing in a way, and it was amazing to have all that freedom. And when you kind of, when I thought a Marvel, what would it be like to score something for them, I didn't realize that it would be such a kind of freeing, amazing experience. Like it's definitely exceeded anything I could have imagined in terms of creative freedom and support as well. Just incredible team, like the music supervisors and Dave Jordan and Ellie and Shire, and just endless support and encouragement from everyone, and Kate, obviously.
That's fantastic. So what was the process like collaborating with such a large team?
Well, it was very much between Kate and I, like the kind of dialogue, but then people would, Kevin Wright that would chip in occasionally, and then we would get notes from the execs as well. They were kind of like the timekeepers overseeing everything. and super sweet. Like all the execs and Christine Alonso and Louis actually personally called me to just say thank you, which was really generous and kind of them. And so that was,
So how much did you know of Loki, the character, before you started this process?
Well, I'd watched pretty much all the Marvel movies, and so I was pretty familiar with it. And in fact, I have to say, like, yeah, Ragnarok was one of my favorites, and I really loved that kind of arm of the or branch of the universe. So I was just, yeah, when my agent told me, like, it wasn't even said what it was to begin with. She was just like, oh, there's a Marvel thing that they want a playlist that's sort of slightly space age and quite big melodies. And so, I didn't even know what the job was for when I sent my show reel.
Mm-hmm.
When I got the script, I was like, oh my God, it's Loki. I was like totally stoked. And yeah, just the dream job, really. It just feels like such a huge kind of scope to be really bold and different and dramatic, and yeah, so many ups and downs, and like, that moment, just taking the theme as well and playing around with it in so many different ways has been super fun.
Yeah, it was mind-blowing hearing Sophia DiMartino and Wunmi Masaku both say they had no idea what they were auditioning for.
Yeah, Marvel being secretive.
That's their way.
Yeah, I definitely trust their process. Like, they deliver the goods, I think, and the way that it was all managed and steered, and like delivering a suite and having the suite approved, and then being able to just treat the series like a sort of 6-hour film.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's meant that there's this cohesion and scope to it that, yeah, just feels really good.
Right. Since you were familiar with Loki, you probably didn't need to get the Loki lectures from Tom Hiddleston, did you?
Oh no, I think not. Well, I think those were only bestowed on the acting side of things.
Okay.
Sadly, I should have got myself like an extras part playing an instrument on the train.
That could have been a nice cameo on the train. Yes.
So COVID just changed so much about the entertainment industry, the whole world. All of this you had to deal with remotely. So how did it all come together, both technically and creatively?
I'm not sure I would have got the job were it not for COVID. I just don't know. But I mean, the fact that they were happy to have people working remotely, probably more than they would have been pre-pandemic, was maybe a bonus for me.
Right.
and yeah, like, just, it's so strange to have actually never met Kate Herron in person, and yet feel like we've just totally been in the trenches together, and or not with that, but we've just bonded so much over this job and what we've created, and we've just without meeting, it's really bonkers.
Well, we hope that you all meet at the Emmys, because you all deserve to be there.
Well, that's very sweet of you. And yeah, I guess we missed the boat this year, so it'll be quite a while away. but Kate's back in London now, so I think I'm meeting up with her and Emma, the editor. I think for the final episode we might have a watching party for episode 6.
Oh, that
awesome.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, it'll be cool. We've just been chatting about it, so yeah, hopefully that happens.
So in addition to all the remote work, what other challenges did you face in scoring the show that you haven't come across in your work before?
I think homeschooling my daughter. She was 6 at the time of Loki, so still kind of needing quite a lot of attention. And yeah, she lost her front tooth during the middle of a meeting and came in and showed everybody her front tooth. So that's probably an unusual meeting point. But yeah, it was definitely really challenging, just keeping my brain across all the different elements, making sure that I'd recorded everything, all the solos that I needed to get, and got all the things I needed on the tape and passed it over to this person, and then the sessions with the orchestra and the brass section and the choir, just that was quite time consuming. Like for each episode I was probably on, I don't know, 2.5 days of recording, just because it was quite a slow process. And I'd keep having, like, we couldn't watch pictures, so I'd have to kind of stop and check back and then go in again. And yeah, that was that. It was, but you know, everybody worked really hard to make it happen, and I think we got there in the end. And then my engineer, Jake Jackson, he just brought it all together, and I think he had to buy a different license for Pro Tools because he was like using so many tracks in episodes 5 and 6. There's episodes 5 and 6, which they were quite giant sessions. But and we had to just mix it remotely. So audio movers and Zoom were sort of key instruments in getting it all over the line.
For sure. Well, honestly, you'd never know that you guys had to do this all remotely. It's flawless.
Oh, that's very sweet of you. But you know, the other thing is I probably couldn't have got like all those musicians to be free and available. I bet they would have all been on tour had we not been in a pandemic. So there's the positives and negatives are kind of in balance, I would say.
Right.
Yeah, it sometimes can be a blessing in disguise.
Definitely.
As well. Yeah, as well as the challenges.
So we've talked a lot about you as a composer for Loki and your other work, but you've also spent a lot of time on stage as a performer, formerly in the string quartet Raven. Tell us a little bit about that time, how you came together.
Yeah, sure. So I studied violin and then I kind of switched over to definitely like wanting to be a film composer, and then did my master's at the National Film and Television School. And I still played a bit on the side to, you know, pay the rent. But when I left film school, you know, I was totally broke. I was like living in a flat share in London, like, I want to compose, I want to be a composer, but I have no one will give me a job. So yeah, I started doing session work and quartet gigs, and then set up this group with a couple of friends. And it was amazing. And I think also the experience of playing chamber, I was actually playing viola in that quartet, but so you're kind of in the middle, like listening to people being more virtuosic at the top on high up on the violin. But I think it really improved my musicality actually, and rehearsing, and they're all incredible musicians, those girls. So yeah, it was really informative being in that group. And also we used to do lots of sessions playing on films. So yeah, Abbey Road and Air. So seeing how being in there and playing on other composers' soundtracks was just like a great lesson. And then I kind of reached out to Martin Phipps. I, you know, sent him a few things I'd written, and we had met up for coffee, and he just said, "Oh, I'll keep you in mind if I ever need any help with like string writing or arranging or anything." And then that work kind of increased, and Martin called me up for Great Expectations, and I think it was like 2010. And then yeah, that was always what I wanted to do primarily, and I just suddenly found a way of doing it and making that work. So sort of dropped the playing, although I still play all over my stuff. And I actually played with the girls at a wedding a couple of weeks ago, so that was really nice. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So you've toured the world with Raven, 3 other women, and you've been working in the industry as a woman for years now. How did it feel working with Kate and a bunch of other great women behind the scenes of Loki? That's one of the things we love about the show, is that there's such a strong sense of female empowerment, not only on screen, but behind the scenes as well. And we just most recently saw that with Sophia DiMartino showing the world her costume that Christine Wada made her so that it would be easier for her to breastfeed.
Yeah, that was so cool. I love that she did that. yeah, so I think it's amazing that there's space and opportunities, and I love seeing more women in the industry being given opportunities. It's so great to see, and obviously, you know, those women that do choose to have families, there's still this issue that we can't get around, which is the biology of having a baby and breastfeeding, and I'm so pleased to see that picture, and yeah, feel real solidarity with it. Like, I can remember breastfeeding my daughter when I was assisting on Paddington, and my other half wheeling her around in a pram in Soho, and I didn't want to tell anybody that I was working with that I had a baby, because I thought that
Oh,
I wouldn't. I don't know. Yeah, when I went in for the interview, and I was like, "Can you see I'm pregnant?" And I was just like, when I was pregnant and having my daughter, I didn't want to tell people about it because I didn't want it to affect my work, which seems really crazy now. I think people have become a lot more accommodating.
yeah, I think so. And do you think that perhaps now with COVID and more of us being able to work remotely, would that help in a situation like this
Yeah,
moving
definitely.
forward?
I think so. Yeah, I think remote working, and I mean, it's fine. I think it's easier in post production. I still think if you're on set, I think cinematographers have a real challenge, because, you know, that one of my best friends is a cinematographer, and she
Hmm.
is constantly being asked to travel around the world and be on set for like 4 months to, you know, 6 months, whatever it is, and that's not very family friendly.
Right, yeah.
And it is something that you see male cinematographers perhaps would have their wives come, and they, you know, just follow them with the kids or whatever, and I don't know, I still think we've got a ways to go before we're totally equal, I think, in child rearing.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I think it just needs a lot of transparency and conversations to happen. That seems to be, it's great, going in the right direction.
That's the best part. At least it's going in the right direction.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to show you're only the second woman ever to score an MCU project out of 20 something now between movies and Disney Plus series. And we're getting more and more women in. So it's refreshing, both on screen and behind the scenes.
Definitely. Yeah. And Hilda, just with her killer score for the Joker, so proud. Like, she's amazing. Great to see that happening. And her speech last year
Right.
was really, really empowering, I thought.
Yeah. So you've played some incredible venues all over the world. You played Buckingham Palace, the London Olympics. What was your favorite throughout the years? For those of us who can't leave our homes quite yet still and can't travel around, take us vicariously.
Oh, oh my goodness. I remember we got like a quartet gig in Mexico, which was kind of crazy. Like it was a winemaker's in Ensenada, I think it was.
Okay.
And we got to play in this kind of vineyard, and like the whole village came, and we were playing on a stage, and we kind of, yeah, just had fireworks going off and eating amazing Mexican food, and yeah, just it was like a celebration of this vineyard, and I think it was its 25th year anniversary or something, and that just, yeah, it felt so cool to be in this vineyard with all these people, and yeah, just kind of these mad experiences that you get booked to do as a musician.
Yeah, that sounds like straight out of a movie.
And then obviously I think playing with George Michael was really special as well. Like, he's such a legend, and
Yeah.
he was so sweet. Like, he used to come, and, you know, he put on a little, I think we played at the Royal Opera House, and he did a little party for I was in his Symphonica band, so there was a lot of musicians, but he was just really sweet to everybody, and came round and said hi to everyone. And
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, I remember growing up listening to his music.
Yeah, he's me too. I was a bit kind of starstruck.
I'm glad you mentioned the great food there in Mexico. We've read that you're quite the exotic eater. So what's the craziest or weirdest thing you've ever eaten?
Oh my goodness. I don't know where you plucked that from. But oh, definitely. Like we did a tour in Japan after the tsunami. Like this Japanese musician that we'd all been recording with, it paid for a chamber orchestra to go over, and we played in lots of the areas where people were living in temporary accommodation after it was like 6 months after the tsunami had hit.
Mm-hmm.
And we traveled around that whole region, and I don't know, I think we did about 6 or 7 concerts and we had the chance to eat a lot of unusual food on that tour, and everybody always passed it up and sent it down to me. I think I had some, like, I don't know, sea urchin, natto, which is like sort of rotten fermented soybeans.
Right. Yes, I've heard of that.
Yeah. So I just always have to I have to try everything. I'm just that kind of person.
Any biggest regrets?
I did. Well, there's that thing for oysters, isn't there? That you're not meant to have them. Isn't it months with R in them? I can't remember. Anyway, I have had bad oysters, but it hasn't put me off. I still eat them.
Okay. So, are there any philanthropic causes that you'd like to shine a light on?
I guess, like we've touched on women's entry, Me Too, and how amazing it is that women are being given opportunities that they weren't given before. And I'm just, I think it's so important, not just for our generation, but for looking at people coming up. And it makes me really sad because I was given scholarships to Saturday music school, where I was given composition lessons from the age of 11 and theory and harmony and music. And this was like run by the local council. And since then, the last 10 years, that school has been closed down. The funding's been stopped. And, music in schools is dwindling. I think I just worry that the arts is becoming really unaffordable and inaccessible for young people, and it's so prohibitively expensive to go to university and study and do a master's, and then trying to enter into the film industry now. You like, I certainly had quite a long stretch of hardly earning anything, but I was okay because I didn't have all that debt coming out of university. But I just think if I was coming up, if I was a young person now, I worry that the access into the industry is for the elite, for the wealthy. And I think we've got to open it up to women, and we've also got to open it up for people who don't have that financial support from family. And I hope that we can keep our industry available and open to everybody.
Right.
So you mentioned Fever Dream earlier. Now that's coming out on Netflix, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So are there any other upcoming TV or film projects that you can tell our listeners about?
Yeah, the film Fever Dream, I'm really excited for that to be out in the world. It's like Claudia Lalosa, the director, is so talented, and it's a film about a sort of strange illness and mother-daughter relationship and a slightly mystical kind of journey. And it just feels very timely after the year and a half that we've all had.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing it now after what's happened.
Can you tell us when will the second half of the Loki soundtrack release?
Yeah, the second half's coming on the 23rd of July.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. And episodes 5 and 6 get really, prepare yourself.
I don't know if I could handle more. I had a heart attack watching episode 4 because I did not know ahead of time that there was a mid-credit scene. So I was in the middle of a stroke when I looked at my phone and saw Amy's message of, there's a mid-credit scene.
Oh, that scene with Mobius being pruned as well. It's just so killer. It was so I love that scene.
It's interesting that you do watch your own work, because we've talked with others in the industry who can't. They can't be anywhere near it after it's done.
Well, I'm so into this project. I don't know, like they were saying that not many composers go to the dub either, but I can't let it go. I just have to I'd watch it and check that the levels, and I'd be messaging Kate like, can we turn this scene up please? I felt like it was a bit quiet, and I'm like, I find it really hard to let go. So I think I'm sort of intrigued to watch it and see how it sounds on how the final CGI special effects have come out and stuff like that. Yeah,
and as a creative, you're always wanting to make it that much little better. You just have that trouble of, it's good enough, I'm going to stop.
Yeah, I definitely had that with this. I just felt like I could keep going. I could down a rabbit hole. Jake was like, the engineer, is like prizing it out of my hands at some stages.
It's like your baby.
Yeah, definitely.
So tell our listeners where they can find you online.
So I'm on Twitter. I think I'm called Film Music Holt.
Yes, you are.
I am. And then the albums are out across multiple platforms, I think.
Yes,
we've seen it on Spotify and Apple Music at least so far.
Yeah.
So Natalie, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We are so excited for episodes 5 and 6. We've loved everything thus far.
Oh, it was just like really fun to chat to you, and I'm looking forward to everybody getting part 2 of the album as well, and hope everybody feels as enthusiastic.
Yeah, I personally can't wait, because I would love to have you on for a couple of hours and just ask you so many questions.
Well, happy to come back if you forgot to go over anything today.
And best of luck with Fever Dream and all the secret projects that you have coming up.
Oh, thank you.
And that wraps up our chat with Loki composer, the brilliant Natalie Holt.
Her score for the first half of the series is now available on iTunes, Spotify, and everywhere else you get your music.
The score for episodes 4 through 6 will be released on Friday, July 23rd. Thanks to all you madams for checking out this latest installment of Studio Sessions.
You can find links to Natalie on social media in our show notes, and you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr at Marvel Madams. And for more content, visit our website, themarvelousmadams.com, where infinity stones are a girl's best friend.